And what if Sauron does not conquer? What will you do to him? Asked Pippin. I? Nothing, said Gandalf. I will do nothing to him. I do not wish for mastery. What will become of him? I cannot say. I grieve that so much that was good now festers in the tower. Still for us things have not gone badly. Strange are the turns of fortune. Often does hatred hurt itself.
Welcome to the Wayward Wizards podcast. Today we're reading Book 3, Chapter 10 of The Lord of the Rings. The volume is The Two Towers. The chapter is entitled The Voice of Saruman. And my name is Logan.
My name is Zach.
Zach, this chapter is very short.
In my edition, it's only 11 pages.
But very dense.
Yeah, it's very...
Like a diamond.
Yeah, very dialogue heavy.
Like a piece of obsidian.
Ooh, well done.
Kind of like the Tower of Orthanc. I think the Tower of Orthanc is made from obsidian. That's my guess.
Yeah, I've been kind of talking crap about the last two chapters. I think the beginning of both episodes I said that this is just proof that Tolkien needed an editor.
You just hate The Lord of the Rings. You hate it. That's my theory about fandom. Did you know that? That
fanatics actually hate the thing they love.
That fandom is hating a thing that you claim to love.
Well, it's very nihilistic.
And that's you. That's you.
I love Lord of the Rings.
I don't even like this book. I wish that these chapters didn't exist.
I think that for the most part, there's very few chapters that I don't enjoy. I think this read through, there's really only been a few where I was just like, did we really need this chapter? But I think I 100% agree with what you said a couple chapters ago, which is that at the end of the day, we actually want this experience to last longer. So it's kind of silly to quibble about, which chapters we like and which we don't, because at the end of the day, we're just happy to have more Lord of the Rings to read. But I do feel like this chapter is rewarding and sort of a return to pace. I think the plot moves forward a little bit rather than kind of looking back retrospectively. We finally get to meet Saruman, who has been an off-screen menace up to this point. And I was really pleasantly surprised by the character of Saruman. I think that we have this menacing character that is built up in the previous chapters, especially in the Council of Elrond chapter, where we hear about Gandalf's imprisonment, but also, he's this kind of phantasm that appears in several places throughout the story. He's able to kind of astrally project his body or, seed discord among the Rohirrim. And his betrayal is this devastating blow to the good characters in the book. I was struck by how, I think a word that Tolkien uses is suave. Yeah. How likable the character of Saruman is. He's a smooth talking, honey in your ear kind of person. He tells you what you want to hear. He seeds doubt in your own mind about your own intentions or your own worth. The character is someone who you could see convincing you that you were in the wrong when you were clearly in the right. I just thought that was a really interesting character choice that Tolkien makes. He's almost like a politician, or he's a master manipulator. And there's power in his voice. I think we should just take a running count of every time the word command or commanding is used in this chapter. Because that's really, Saruman's power is in his voice. He's able to manipulate people into doing what he wants them to do through his ability to command. And I think that we've said it probably a dozen times already on the pod, but I think it's worth repeating that magic in Tolkien is really about command. You tell someone to do something and they do it, or you tell the river to do something and it does it. You tell a tree to, stop eating hobbits and it stops eating hobbits. Like, that's what magic is. It's an ability to command.
Yeah. I think Saruman in this chapter is way stranger, like weirder than he's been depicted up to this point, and more dangerous, which makes me question why Gandalf kind of like lets everybody come along. I think that's really odd. He really is dangerous even when he's just speaking to you, and he has this charisma.
Yeah, that's a great word for it.
that that people are, easily swayed by.
They want to please him.
Yeah, and they, he has a way of saying things that are convincing, and it's almost like something that it's like a residue kind of like gets on you.
Yeah.
There's a long paragraph where Tolkien is describing the effect that being around Saruman has on people, which I thought was really interesting. To me, it was almost like a description of like Hitler.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that kind of like propagandistic speech or something can like weasel its way into your brain and stay with you, even if you're kind of wary of it. And then like the mood swings
Yeah.
that Saruman has too are also really like weird, and a kind of sign that he's not a stable
Yeah.
person, that he's been corrupted and is corrupting and is like sort of falling apart at the seams in some ways. And so he has this way of like influencing how you see him, but then it's that power kind of slips, and like maybe that's what Gandalf is talking about, that his power is waning. You can like see through that mask that he projects, and you see the real, almost like the Gollum character, underneath his visage or whatever.
It's a great comparison.
And I kind of keep feeling that way, that, I felt that way about Wormtongue, and I felt that way about, and now in this chapter a couple times you sort of see this like shriveled, sort of just like sad husk of what the person truly was or once was or something. So yeah, it's really a dense chapter too. Even though it's short, there's so much going on in every paragraph. It really is dense.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, you compared him to Hitler, and I think that certainly anybody who's reading this in 1954, I think it would be pretty hard for them not to immediately say, "Oh, Tolkien is talking about Hitler here." I think, I think the tendency to not want to read allegory into Lord of the Rings is good. I think that Tolkien rightfully disagreed with anyone who tried to do a one for one allegory for who characters were, what themes were in reference to, and like his political climate. But I do think it's fair for us to say that he has this like kind of fascistic nature to him. And I mean, at one point he even says like exactly the words, "Only I can fix this," or "Only I can save it."
Yeah, I was like shocked by that. I was like, oh my gosh, here it is right here. Like, who else have we heard say that? I'm the strong man. I'm the one who can do it.
Yeah, and I'm the only one who is your way out of this. Like, it's not too late.
Right.
But a theme that comes out in this chapter that I think is really, it's unique, and I think it really speaks to me. And it's a theme that we've explored, but I think this is a perfect example of Gandalf. I think genuinely gives Saruman an opportunity at repentance, and I think that in the back of his mind, he knows that he's not going to take it, but he still doesn't deny him the opportunity to undo some of the hurt that he's done. And that's a really moving moment, I think, when characters talk about the goodness and majesty and strength that Saruman used to have. I think they're being genuine. I think he was genuinely a good character who lost his way. And I'm always moved by Tolkien's sort of counterintuitive movement towards pity and mercy. It's something that the good characters in the book never fail to show.
Yeah, I wonder if Gandalf can't see some of himself in Saruman.
Oof.
Partly because they truly share like
Nature.
an essence or a nature. Yeah. Like they really are similar beings. I mean, the funny thing is that, right, like anytime you have a dealing with another human being, you're dealing with a similar being, right? You're dealing with somebody with a similar nature or the same nature as you.
Right.
But it's highlighted by this fantasy setting because they're both divine beings in a heightened way, in a way that a human being isn't. And so it kind of like helps, I think it helps reveal like something about that being heightened in that way, like helps reveal the way that we're always in relationship with others, even if
Yeah.
they're detestable, like Saruman. And
You calling him a divine being, I think we should clarify that the Astari are angelic beings. They are not humans. They are immortal, powerful spiritual beings who have been around since the very beginning, and they're sort of clothed in flesh, but they are not human beings. They're of an order similar to Sauron, though less powerful than Sauron and is at the height of his power. There's a scene in the Scouring of the Shire, which we'll get to, towards the very end of the book, when one of the hobbits says, essentially, let's just off this guy. Like, what's stopping us from just executing him right now? He's caused so much harm and so much hurt. And Frodo says, and I'm paraphrasing, he's of an order that is majestic and powerful beyond our understanding. And so even though he's fallen to evil, it's sort of not our place to decide to execute him.
they kind of can't judge him in some way.
It's like we're beneath his station, even though he's caused great evil and great harm. It's sort of up to God to decide if this guy is allowed to live or not. They sort of don't have the authority to choose to execute him. But consistently in the story, whenever someone calls for someone to be executed, a wiser person says that it's essentially beyond human authority to decide if someone should live or die. And there's that great Gandalf quote: "Some who live deserve to die, but some who die deserve to live, and you can't give them life, so don't be so quick to deal out death in judgment."
Yeah, there's definitely an academic essay waiting to be written, or probably has been written, about the ethics of violence, judgment, justice, war, and death in Lord of the Rings. And in this chapter itself, there's a short but really dense discussion about murder and war, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it would bear a longer conversation than we can have today. It would really be, fun to kind of muddle through that. But I don't know if it would be very good podcasting. But I think, yeah, I mean, you're right. That does come up again and again. And I don't think that Tolkien's mind is necessarily settled on it. It's something he's kind of trying to work out in a way, and it helps us. And I think it invites us as readers to investigate our own, priors about what do we think about violence? What do we think about justice in this fictional world? And I think it definitely has bearing on our own context as well.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if I agree that Tolkien wasn't settled in his understanding, because I think it was firmly rooted in a Catholic worldview, where he didn't feel that he had sort of the authority to argue with kind of the theological position that he held so deeply. But I do think it's fair to say that it was nuanced. He's not a pacifist.
I think you're right that, like, he would have subscribed, if you pushed him, he would have said, I follow what the church teaches about this.
Yeah.
But I still think there's like evidence in here that, like, I think there's evidence that is characterized, like literally characterized through characters on the page of the argument, right? That might have been inside himself. Even though push come to shove, he would say, this doctrine is the thing.
I follow the traditions of the church. Yeah.
It's still maybe the doctrine is important because otherwise we're just constantly arguing with each other. You know what I mean? And so, but I love the nuance in here, and I love to see it kind of externalized, in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. You ready to jump right into the text?
I'm ready to jump.
We've been with Pippin and Merry and the three hunters for the last chapters. They're kind of recounting everything that had happened to them in the past 9 or 10 days. And now they are reconnected with the train of people who came with Gandalf at their head and Theoden as well. They essentially make the decision after their discussion with Treebeard who it is that is going to parlay with Saruman.
Yeah, the line from Gandalf is, well, Treebeard and I have had some interesting discussions and made a few plans. And then I really loved this next part, and we have all had some much needed rest.
I knew you were going to mention that line.
I hope you companions have all rested too and refreshed yourselves. That's so, I mean, it's like Gandalf in like dad mode. We were joking about Gandalf making everybody go to the bathroom the other day.
Yeah.
and this is sort of in that same tone, but it's a nice return to the importance of, breaking bread and sitting around a fire with your friends and, smoking a pipe and sharing a meal. That those are the things that refresh you for the hard parts of the journey. That you don't it's not just a constant slog, right?
Yeah, and Merry says that they have refreshed themselves. He says, but our discussions began and ended in smoke. Still, we feel less ill-disposed towards Saruman than we did. And Gandalf is like, that's a mistake.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't say it in so many words, but what they're about to do in parlaying with Saruman is probably the most dangerous thing that they've done up to this point. And probably the only thing that would be more dangerous would be to parlay with Sauron himself.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that really underlines it. I guess it also, again, makes me question, like, if it's that dangerous, why wouldn't Gandalf just go by himself?
He trusts these guys.
I guess. But he even says to Gimli, like, you might not even be allowed to see what he actually looks like.
Yeah, Gimli says, I'll come along if nothing else. I just want to see if you guys look alike. And Gandalf is like, hey, do you not think that this guy is powerful enough that he can make himself look one way to you and another way to me and another way to somebody else? Like he's literally able to change his visage to people.
That's extremely strange. Can Gandalf do that? Could he do that as Gandalf the Grey? I don't know.
I think he could do it now. And I think like a lot of the metaphorical language about like every once in a while Gandalf's true visage is seen, and it's almost like sun peeking out from behind cloud. I think he is able to do it. Maybe he's just too honest and true, but if he wanted to, I think he could.
But probably not as Gandalf the Grey.
I don't think so. No, I think he's in a more powerful state now.
Right. And so, well, maybe that's why Gandalf is not as concerned as I sort of feel like he maybe should be.
Well, I think Gandalf says at one point, he says, and I think it's in the quote that we started the pod with today, I do not desire mastery. Changing your visage to delude someone is a way of enthralling them. It's a way of enchanting them. It's mastery. I think it's disrespectful. It doesn't recognize the personhood of a person in the same way as appearing in an honest fashion. And so I just don't think it's in Gandalf's nature to do that. It almost reminds me of, do you remember in the Mirror of Galadriel section when Frodo asks Galadriel, essentially, if the ring gives the wearer the power to dominate the will of another person, then how come I've not done that?
It's like you never thought of, she just kind of says you never thought to do it, right?
You never tried.
Right.
It's not in his nature to do that. And of course, it goes on to explain that he would have to train his mind to the domination of other beings. He wouldn't just be able to do it. He would have to work at it for a long time before he was actually able to master that type of domination, but it's just not in his nature. So, but the implication is that if he had tried, he could have. as the ring bearer. But I just think it's not in Gandalf's nature.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. So they have this conversation, and he
gives him a little pep talk.
He gives him a pep talk, and Pippin sort of says, "Well, what is the danger? Is he going to shoot at us, or pour fire on us, or can he put a spell on us from a distance?" And Gandalf says that the last is the most likely, but you can't. And the mistake is to ride to his door with a light heart. That you need to be guarded in this moment.
A few paragraphs before he says, "Do not jest. This is not the time for it."
Right.
So he's saying like, hey, I know you guys have been kind of yucking it up, and I'm glad that you've had that opportunity, but now we need to kind of put our game faces on, because if you go into this without your guard up, it would be like approaching a cornered wild beast. He says, "A wild beast cornered is not safe to approach, and Saruman has powers you do not guess. Beware of his voice." So his voice is his weapon. It's the tool that he uses to manipulate.
That's how he casts a spell, is through that word of command. So they approach Orthanc, and this description of Orthanc is what made me think of Obsidian. Is that it was black and the rock gleamed as if it were wet.
Yeah.
And then it's like faceted. It has many faces of stone with sharp edges, as though they had been newly chiseled. And then there are a few small flake-like splinters near the base.
Yeah, the flakes.
Where the Ents kind of threw themselves against the tower.
Yeah, good catch. Yes, interesting that there's very little evidence on the tower itself of the cataclysm that's just happened around it. Gandalf says, "I will go up. I've been in Orthanc and I know my peril." So, yeah, I mean, he's been imprisoned there. And he says, "I know my peril," which I think shows that he's still not impervious to Saruman's power himself.
Mm-hmm.
His laughter is what will break Saruman's spell for everyone else later.
I love that part, yeah.
Because he is more powerful than him, but even so, he's like, this dog can still bite. But Theoden says, "I too will go up. I am old and fear no peril anymore. I wish to speak with the enemy who has done me so much wrong. Eomer shall come with me, and see that my aged feet do not falter."
Gandalf brings Aragorn along, and then tells everybody else to stay at the foot of the stairs, but Gimli and Legolas won't have that.
No.
And then Gimli volunteers both of them. "Nay, Legolas and I wish for a closer view."
Yeah. I wonder what Legolas thinks of that.
And they're the representatives of their people.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing for Gimli to say, because that is ultimately why they were chosen to be part of the company.
Yeah, and this is almost like it goes beyond just Gandalf calls it a parlay, but it's almost like a United Nations meeting or something like that. It's like all the powers of the world are represented here.
Yeah.
Including Mordor, right? Because Saruman is really an agent, whether he likes it or not, of Mordor.
He's Sauron's crooked finger, as he's about to be called.
And I just love that Gimli is sort of irascible. He's coming no matter what. And Gandalf's like, "All right, come on, let's go."
But Merry and Pippin sat at the bottom step, feeling both unimportant and unsafe.
Yeah.
And Pippin is essentially like, "Man, what are we doing here? Like, I wish I could have just if I could still save face, I would run back to the gate." He says, "I wish I could slip off back to the guard room unnoticed. What did we come for? We are not wanted." And so here they are being luggage again.
Right. That's such a Hobbit thing, though, too. We're willing to go on this adventure, but the whole time we're going to wish we were back somewhere safer. I wish we were back in the Shire. I wish I was back in the Hobbit hole, in Hobbiton. I wish that I was back at the gate. I wish, I'm going to come along, but God dang, this is just so much.
It's that Tuke and Baggins battle that happens all the way back in the Hobbit. It's like you have these conflicting natures.
Inside you are two hobbits, a Took and a Baggins, and they're at war with each other.
Yeah, and which one will win? The one that you feed.
Yeah, exactly. That's
bacon
funny.
and eggs, preferably. So Gandalf stands before the door of Orthanc, and he beats on it with a staff. Boom, boom, boom. Rings out with a hollow sound. Saruman, Saruman, he cried in a loud, commanding voice. Saruman, come forth. So there's the first use of the word command that I found. And who comes to answer the knocking on the door, Logan? Your favorite character.
Old Wormtongue himself.
Who is it? Said a voice. What do you wish?
Theoden's like, I could smell your foul stench the moment I stepped aboard this ship. It says, I know that voice, and I curse the day when I first listened to it. Go and fetch Saruman, since you have become his footman, Grima Wormtongue, said Gandalf, and do not waste our time.
Here's the part where it describes, we get the longest kind of description of Saruman's voice. It's this beautiful voice. It's melodious. It says
low and melodious.
Its very sound is an enchantment. And it says that anyone who listens to it unwarily could really, you don't exactly know even what the person said, what this voice said. But the power kind of remains, the power of the voice remains in them. And this is the piece that kind of makes me think about like propaganda. They just remembered that it felt good to hear the voice.
Yeah.
And that it seemed wise and reasonable. And then they want, and a desire awoke in them to agree with it. And they want to appear just as wise themselves. And it made them, it like stokes anger in their heart if somebody speaks against the voice.
Yeah, and like every other voice by comparison sounds harsh.
Right.
And grating. And just a couple words that I circled here are the word enchantment. It was low and melodious. It's very sound and enchantment. It has a same root word as incantation. And the word spell is used consistently. Anger was kindled in the hearts of those under the spell. For some, the spell lasted only while the voice spoke to them. For those whom it conquered, the spell endured when they were far away. So there's something more powerful than just normal speech going on. But also all these things could be said for someone who is an orator. These
absolutely.
are all the goals. These are the goals of people who do public speaking.
Right.
It's just an extra potent version of that.
Right. I think the final sentence is worth reading where it says, but none were unmoved. So whether you're wary of it or not, whether you see through the trick or not.
It calls it a juggler's trick at one point.
Yeah. None were unmoved. None rejected its pleas and its commands without an effort of the mind and will, so long as its master had control of it.
Do you think that includes Gandalf?
Yeah, I mean, I think so.
That even he has to
maybe not
be on his guard.
Maybe not to the same degree as, Theoden or Éomer or whatever, but certainly seems that way, that anyone who's around this has to be wary.
Yeah. It's interesting. He sort of appears without them noticing that he has kind of snuck up behind Grima. So he still has this almost like kind of ghostly power to him. It says, they looked up astonished, for they had heard no sound of his coming, and they saw a figure standing at the rail, looking down upon them. An old man, swathed in a great cloak, the color of which was not easy to tell, for it changed if they moved their eyes or if he stirred. If you remember back to the Council of Elrond, when he sort of reveals his true nature to Gandalf and his true intentions, he says, behold, I'm no longer Saruman the White, I'm now Saruman of many colors. And that's where we get the great line where he says, a white beam of light broken, essentially creates a rainbow. And that's where we get the great line from Gandalf that someone who breaks a thing to understand it has lost the way of reason. And then we get this great short line from Gimli. Gimli is so impressive in this chapter.
Mm-hmm.
It says that none were unmoved. I think that the two most likely that we could say were not moved by this are Gandalf and Gimli. Gimli kind of sees through the facade. It gives a description of him and about his coat of many colors, and also, the height of his forehead, and, that his eyes are hard to fathom. Um, and his hair and his beard were white, but strands of black still showed about his lips and ears. It's a really interesting, like, physical description of him and how he looks both grave and weary and benevolent. He has a gravitas that is really captured in that brief description. But then Gimli just goes, like and yet unlike. So
Yeah,
I mean,
it sums it up completely.
Yeah, he stated his purpose that he went to go see, if he really does look just like Gandalf. And he's like, in some ways, yes, in some ways, no.
Gimli in this chapter reminds me a little bit of the description in Rivendell of, is it the King Under the Mountain? King, is it Dane? Yeah, Dane, and the way that when Sauron sent some kind of emissary looking for the ring, they kind of like saw right through it, So there's some kind of dwarf sense or something here that's on display again, even though it's with Saruman instead. But they're not really easily tricked necessarily by.
No, because they're made of the same stuff as the mountains that they delve into. They're hard. I wanted to read this little line. This is skipping forward a little bit. Saruman is about to describe his injuries that he's faced at the hands of the Rohirrim, and he sets himself up as someone who's been greatly grieved, but is patient and willing to forgive the wrongs that were done to him. And Gimli breaks in suddenly after and goes, "The words of this wizard stand on their heads. In the language of Orthanc, help means ruin, and saving means slaying. That is plain. But we do not come here to beg." We learn that the 7 rings that were given to the dwarves were given for the purpose of enthralling them in the same way that the 9 rings that were given to the kings of men were, but that they were resistant to it.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of didn't work. It kind of backfired. It gave them power, but it didn't turn them into wraiths. That's why there's no ring wraiths from the dwarves. The reason there's no ring wraiths from the elves is because, one, they're a powerful people, more powerful spiritually than men, but also because their rings were never touched by Sauron. The 7 rings were intended to turn them into ring wraiths, but they were just too hardy.
Yeah, it made them, like, it sort of drove them crazy, right? Like with like gold lust or something like that. But it didn't have the intended effect that Sauron had.
No. Saruman's speech to Theoden is so smarmy. He sets himself up as a victim, and he says, like, Theoden, come on, man. Why didn't you come before when we could have met as friends? It's a real shame that you've been given bad counsel. And he's like looking over at Gandalf, I imagine, when he says that.
Yeah.
But it's not too late. Like, despite the injuries that have been done to me, in which the men of Rohan, alas, have played some part, still I would save you and deliver you from the ruin that draws nigh inevitably if you ride upon this road which you have taken. Indeed, I alone can aid you now. So he sets himself up as a savior to these erring, unintentional pawns in this game that he's kind of presenting here. And it says that the riders of Rohan, they are deeply uncomfortable about this, and they fall for it. They become spellbound and silent. It says, it seems to them that Gandalf had never spoken so fair and fittingly to their lord. Rough and proud now seemed all his dealings with Theoden, and over their hearts crept a shadow, a fear of greater danger, the end of the mark, and a darkness to which Gandalf was driving them, while Saruman stood beside a door of escape, holding it half open so that a ray of light came through. There was a heavy silence. And Gimli breaks that silence and calls Saruman a fool.
That piece that you mentioned before about the words of the wizard stand on their heads. Help means ruin. Saving means slaying. That also reminds me of the way that fascistic language works,
Yes. Double speak.
And that kind of double speak of authoritarian. But yeah, Gimli sees right through it. And Saruman wants to say, you don't even belong here,
Yeah, he says that to Gimli. He's essentially like, let the adults speak.
Yeah, and again, maybe that's the contrast between Gandalf and Saruman, that Gandalf is an includer and Saruman is a excluder, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Saruman speaks to the person's title and Gandalf speaks to the person. So it's not that Gandalf doesn't have respect for a king, but he still is more interested in that direct kind of human connection.
Absolutely.
In a way that Saruman isn't.
And his ability to see the worth in people who are not apparently powerful.
Right. And we talked about that a long time ago with Radagast, where Saruman gave him a task that he couldn't complete, and Gandalf gave him a task that was perfectly fitted to his gifts.
Yeah, he sends off Radagast like an errand boy to go grab Gandalf. And Gandalf is like, hey, go talk to your friends, the birds.
It's awesome.
And ask them to help me. And that's his salvation. If he hadn't asked that exact task of that exact person, then he would probably still be up on the Tower of Orthanc today.
Yeah, exactly. But this contest is really between Saruman and Theoden.
Yeah. Do you want to read that bit that he says to Theoden, starting with, what have you to say, Theoden King?
Yeah. So Saruman says, what have you to say, Theoden King? Will you have peace with me, and all the aid that my knowledge, founded in long years, can bring? Shall we make our counsels together against evil days, and repair our injuries with such good will that our estates shall both come to fairer flower than ever before? It's like inviting him into this, like, ideal world that doesn't exist.
No, it's delusion.
And Theoden doesn't answer, but Éomer is...
He's indignant. And he sees Theoden thinking, and he can't tell. He's almost like, all right, like, Uncle, are you like falling for this crap?
And he has seen Theoden fall for Wormtongue's, right? BS.
Yeah,
and
that's a great point.
So I think, he wants to jump in here, and he says, have we ridden forth to victory only to stand at last amazed by an old liar with honey on his forked tongue? Like,
beautiful.
Whoa. Yeah, it's like so pointed.
So would the trapped wolf speak to the hounds if he could.
Exactly.
So he's like, hey, like, this guy's desperate. All right. He's trying to talk his way out of a trap. He says, what aid can he give you, forsooth? Did you look up what forsooth means? I've never actually looked up what forsooth means.
Yeah. So it means like in truth or indeed. So like a soothsayer is a truth teller. So it's right. Like indeed, forsooth.
All he desires is to escape from his plight. But will you parley with this dealer in treachery and murder? Remember Theodred at the fords and the grave of Hama in Helm's Deep.
Yeah.
So here's that unspoken grief.
Theodred, yeah.
So rarely mentioned up to this point. Remember Theodred at the fords. And I think, we've mentioned, but I've been reflecting a lot recently about how Theodred died doing what Theoden was not strong enough to do. And I think that's got to be the source of his shame.
Yeah, shame, right. That cuts pretty deep. I mean, that's pretty close for Éomer to go at Theoden like that in this moment.
Yeah.
Remember your door warden and your son.
Yeah. I mean, Éomer, like, bless him. That's a bold thing to say.
Yeah. And Theoden, still doesn't speak, and so it gives Saruman another chance to...
Yeah, clearly Saruman thinks that he has a hook in him.
Right.
And he talks down Éomer very similar to the way that he just talked down Gimli, where he's like, hey, you don't even really belong here, son.
Yeah.
He says, meddle not in policies which you do not understand. Let the adults speak.
This is above your sort of station. Right.
Here's this reflection on murder. Reflection's the wrong word. This manipulative twisting of a distinction between war and murder.
It's an accusation where he's like, am I to be called a murderer? Seems like you're a murderer. You're the one who led all your people into this battle to be slain. I didn't want to have a war. You wanted to have a war.
He says, if I am a murderer on that account, then all the house of Eorl is stained with murder, for they have fought many wars and assailed many who defied them. Yet with some they have afterwards made peace, none the worse for being politic. I say, Theoden King, shall we have peace and friendship, you and I? It is ours to command. So there's another use of the word command.
Yep. And Theoden says, we will have peace. but it comes out sort of thickly and with effort. Like he is kind of, in like a half asleep sort of state here, but, led by this voice.
Yes.
But then he kind of gets some momentum, holds up his hand. I think that's really interesting. Something about that gesture is more powerful than words.
Well, I think he holds up his hand because the riders around him cry out gladly.
Oh, you're right. Yeah,
it's almost like a rebuke of his own men.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
wait, I'm not
right.
finished.
Yeah, I missed that.
So, yeah, some of his riders are clearly caught in the web of these lies, and they want Theoden to sort of take his offer.
Theoden calls him a liar.
Yeah.
Which is also a word that's been, leveled toward Wormtongue. In the last chapter, Pippin or Merry call Wormtongue a liar. So it's something about lying that's like a real grievous sin to Tolkien.
Absolutely.
And, leading people astray through lying, through, or even through kind of bending the truth. Here's where Theoden calls Saruman only a finger of the claw of Mordor, cruel and cold. Even if your war on me was just, and it was not, what would you say to the torches in Westfold and the children that lie dead there? And then this is horrible. He says, and they hewed Hama's body before the gates of the Hornburg after he was dead. So it wasn't that they just killed Hama.
Yeah. They mutilated his body.
They also desecrated and mutilated his body.
Yes. Yes.
And so that's the true nature of Saruman and Mordor and the forces that they command.
So he's like, yeah, we'll have peace. We'll have peace when you hang from a gibbet at your window for the sport of your own crows. I will have peace with you and Orthanc. So much for the house of Eorl. A lesser son of great sires am I, but I do not need to lick your fingers. Turn elsewhither, but I fear your voice has lost its charm.
Awesome.
Damn, Theoden.
Yeah, Theoden definitely throws down right here.
Gimli seeing through this like visage of benevolence and wisdom and patience, sort of like reveals like a crack where his true nature kind of comes out in anger. I think you called it a mood swing earlier, and I think that's a great way to put it. But this is really where his voice turns ugly, and cruel and harsh, and his true nature comes out.
Saruman says, "Gibbets and crows," he hissed, and they shuddered at the hideous change. "Dotard, what is the house of Eorl but a thatched barn where brigands drink in the reek, and their brats roll on the floor among the dogs? Too long have they escaped the gibbet themselves, but the noose comes, slow in the drawing, tight and hard in the end. Hang if you will."
And then he sort of slowly comes back to his suaveness. Says, now his voice changed as he slowly mastered himself. "I know not why I had the patience to speak to you, for I need you not, nor your little band of gallopers."
Oh, what a jerk.
"Long ago I offered you a state beyond your merit and your wit. I have offered it again, so that those whom you misled may clearly see the choice of roads. You give me brag and abuse. So be it. Go back to your huts."
And now he turns to Gandalf. So this whole time, Gandalf has been silent. From the time that he told Wormtongue to go find Saruman till now. It's like, in my edition, it's like 3.5 pages.
Yes. And he's basically saying, like,
why are you with these, like, idiots?
Yeah, I feel bad for you, man.
Because you're proud, Gandalf, and not without reason. You have a noble mind and eyes that look both deep and far. Won't you listen to my counsel?
It says Gandalf stirred and looked up. So it's almost like Gandalf has been like, the fact that he stirs and looks up shows that he's almost been like sitting still with his eyes down.
He's like daydreaming or just listening.
Almost like meditating, maybe?
Yeah, meditating is a good way to put it.
And these are the first words that he says to Saruman since he escaped the roof of Orthanc.
Yeah.
He says, "What have you to say that you did not say at our last meeting? Or perhaps you have things to unsay."
I think it's really telling that Saruman can't quite understand what Gandalf is saying here. He says, unsay. He mused as if puzzled. Unsay. I think Gandalf is right here calling him to repentance. Saying you need to turn around from what you've been doing and go the other direction. But Saruman can't even understand that.
His ears are blocked to that. He's like,
Yeah.
He says, you are proud and do not love advice, having indeed a store of your own wisdom. He says that dripping with irony. But he says, I think you misconstrue my intentions willfully. He's like, hey, the last time that we met, yeah, it was a real shame I had to imprison you.
I didn't even mean to. He's like, I didn't even really mean to do it,
It's really not my fault that you misconstrued my intentions. I mean, yeah,
Right.
I talked about becoming a power who wields the evil ring, but you misheard me. He says, I fear that in my eagerness to persuade you, I lost patience. He's like, yeah, I didn't really mean to say all those things, So he's saying two things at once. He's saying, one, you misconstrued me. And also he's saying like, but I didn't really mean all that stuff anyway.
Yeah. It's all mixed up because it's a lie.
Yeah. He says, I bore you no ill will, and even now I bear none, though you return to me in the company of the violent and the ignorant. Like the 180 that he takes between how he addresses stated in the beginning versus now, you can see he was just completely full of it. But this is, I think, an important line. He goes, are we not both members of a high and ancient order, most excellent in Middle Earth? Our friendship would profit us both alike. Much we could still accomplish together to heal the disorders of the world. So Gandalf is going to offer Saruman a really similar proposal in a moment. But Gandalf is doing it from a position of power and pity, and Saruman is doing it from a position of manipulation and domination. He's attempting to get himself out of this trap.
Exactly.
In this last effort, when he says, will you not consult with me? Will you not come up? Everyone around Gandalf who hears him say this, Saruman has exerted such an effort, this like kind of last ditch kind of pouring out of his power, that it says everyone else just assumed that Gandalf was going to go up.
Mm-hmm.
They feel like little children who have been sort of privy to a conversation that was above them. And surely these two wise men are going to go and work it out and speak at a level that they can never possibly understand. But Gandalf's response is laughter.
Yeah, and I think that is so powerful. Something about Gandalf laughing, it also really starkly...
Yes, breaks the spell.
It breaks the spell, and it starkly sort of shows that something that somebody said is not as important or full of its own power as it actually is, because you wouldn't laugh at something that was like whole, right? Or like integrated or even like holy. And Gandalf here stands as a bulwark against what Saruman is trying to do. To the point where it says the fantasy vanished like a puff of smoke.
Yeah.
The idea that these are two great men who can treat with each other. It's like, no, like one man is great and the other man is nothing.
And Saruman sort of entreats Gandalf to come up.
Yeah.
And Gandalf is essentially like, now he's just like, no, I remember what happened last time I did that. Yeah. All right. Like the person who escaped from the roof last time is like not likely to come in when he's invited the next time. Okay. But he says, will you not come down? Isengard has proved less strong than your hope and fancy made it. So may other things in which you still have trust. Would it not be well to leave it for a while, to turn to new things perhaps? I mean, that's the literal definition of repentance, right?
Yeah.
To turn around.
Yep.
Think well, Saruman. Will you not come down? So he asks him twice, will you not come down?
This is also where he says, I'm beyond your comprehension.
Yeah.
We can't
fear I am beyond your comprehension.
Yeah. We can't stand, or we can't understand each other because you can't understand anything about me now.
And he hasn't quite revealed himself. He's about to in a minute. In a few minutes, he's going to say, behold, I am not Gandalf the Grey, whom you betrayed. I am Gandalf the White, who has returned from death. Saruman doesn't know that yet. So when he says, I fear I am beyond your comprehension, he's saying like, I've taken your place, dog. Like,
Right.
you've fallen far and I've risen above your station. Like, you actually can't treat with me anymore.
Mhm.
This isn't a parlay. Like, this is a chance for you to repent. Will I come down, he mocked, says Saruman. Does an unarmed man come down to speak with robbers out of doors? I can hear you well enough from here. I am no fool. I do not trust you, Gandalf. They do not stand openly on my stairs, but I know where the wild wood demons are lurking at your command. His distrust of the forest is so misplaced. He thinks that Gandalf is commanding these Huorns.
Yeah, well, and I'm not sure if he's talking about the Huorns or the Ents or both. But what a horrible way to. I mean, the Ents are these like noble creatures.
They're his neighbors.
They're his neighbors, and they're like they have more nobility and like wisdom and grandeur than anything else in the whole book in some way. And so to describe them as wild wood demons is just like, good Lord,
Yeah, it's almost like calling the Rohirrim, drunkards who roll around in their own reek.
Gallopers. Yeah.
And Gandalf's response is so disarming. And he's clearly talking to someone below him when he says, "The treacherous are ever distrustful, but you need not fear for your skin. I do not wish to kill you or hurt you, as you would know if you really understood me. And I have the power to protect you. I am giving you a last chance. You can leave Orthanc free if you choose. I have the power to protect you." What do you think he's getting at there?
I mean, is that sort of a gesture toward like the idea that he can somehow grant mercy to him, or that he could like stand before God and say like, yeah, he did a lot of bad stuff, but like, I don't know. It's weird.
It's almost like he's saying, like, I'll be your advocate. I'll almost like I'll take your side in court. I'll defend you to the Valar.
Yeah. That was my guess. Yeah.
And it's that's something that he's inviting him to repent. And I think like he's not saying like, if you come down now, you won't face judgment. I think he knows that he will face judgment from the Valar. And that's something that when Morgoth fell, all of his generals, including Sauron, were called to stand before the Valar in judgment. And Sauron fled from that judgment because he feared that he wouldn't be forgiven. But I think that the implication is that if he had knelt before the Valar and sought repentance, that he would have been showed it himself.
Yeah.
I think now he's beyond repentance,
Right.
Sauron is. But
Right.
it seems that Saruman is not.
And Gandalf's willing to be his lawyer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, I'll protect you. So I think partly it's saying like, not only I'll allow you to sort of undo some of the harm that you've done, and I'll not let anyone here kill you. I think it's also got like eternal implications.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Very much in the manner of Gandalf the Grey, so condescending and so very kind. He says, "I do not doubt that you would find Orthanc commodious and my departure convenient." She's like, "You're just coming from my house, dog."
Yeah, he thinks that he wants Orthanc, and it's like, what? I think that line shows that he really can't understand Gandalf. Like this idea that what Gandalf really wants is to like live in this tower.
Yeah.
It's just not a choice Gandalf would ever make.
Gandalf says, "When I say free, I mean free. Free from bond or chain or command, to go where you will, even to Mordor, Saruman, if you desire. But you will first surrender to me the key of Orthanc and your staff. They shall be pledges of your conduct to be returned later if you merit them." And that's what really finally cracks Saruman's stately visage.
Yeah, it's funny that he says to Gandalf, again, he still thinks Gandalf wants power and domination like he does. But he says, you would have the key of Barad-dûr itself, and the crowns of 7 kings, and the rods of 5 wizards, and have purchased yourself a pair of boots many sizes larger than those that you wear now. Is that sort of a way of saying like you're like big in your britches or something like that?
Yeah.
It's such a funny line.
He says, "A modest plan.
Yeah.
Hardly one in which my help is needed. I have other things to do."
So Gandalf says, "Come back, Saruman."
in a commanding voice, which there's that word command again.
And to everyone's amazement, he does come back, as if dragged against his will. And he's leaning on it and breathing hard. His face was lined and shrunken. His hand clutched his heavy black staff like a claw.
Yeah.
And Gandalf says, I did not give you leave to go. I have not finished. That's kind of
You
scary.
have become a fool, Saruman, and yet pitiable. You might still have turned away from folly and evil and have been of service, but you chose to stay and gnaw at the ends of your old plots.
Yeah, I gave you a chance to repent, but you haven't taken it.
He says, like, you can choose to stay in your tower, but you won't come down again because I let you out.
Mm-hmm.
The only way that you'll come out is if Mordor itself comes and plucks you away and gives you what you deserve. Behold, I am not Gandalf the Grey, whom you betrayed. I am Gandalf the White, who has returned from death. You have no color now, and I cast you from the Order and from the Council. And then in a stern, clear voice, he raises his hand and says, Saruman, your staff is broken.
Yeah, and the staff sort of cracks in half. And the head
splits asunder.
Yeah, the head falls
at Gandalf's feet. And at that moment, a heavy, shiny thing came hurtling down from above. It glanced off the iron rail even as Saruman left it. And passing close to Gandalf's head, it smote the stair on which he stood. But the ball was unharmed. It rolled on down the steps, a globe of crystal, dark but glowing with a heart of fire. As it bounded away towards a pool, Pippin ran after it and picked it up.
So it's a crystal ball.
The Lord of the Rings has a crystal ball. I'd never thought of the Palantir as a crystal ball.
You pointed this out to me a couple days ago, and when I read it, I was like, "Oh yeah, it is a crystal ball." Oh
yeah, a few things I never noticed. We got magic wands, because staff, like another word for staff, is Gand, which is where the word wand comes from.
Right.
Which is where Gandalf gets his name. It means like wand elf.
Right.
So we got magic wands. We got magic potions.
Mm-hmm.
And we got crystal balls.
Yep. It's all here.
And pointy hats and furry feet.
Exactly.
And it seems like Aragorn is like, so we mentioned Jetsam last time. This is Jetsam. This is the Jetsam of Flotsam and Jetsam. It's something that's jettisoned off the tower.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I like that.
The sinking ship, someone is throwing it off in a last-ditch effort. And Éomer's like, the murderous rogue. But Gandalf he's not shaken. He's just like, that wasn't Saruman. That was Wormtongue.
A parting shot from Master Wormtongue, almost like it was fired from a cannon.
Yeah.
Which I think your Jetsam analogy there, the sort of nautical analogy is really apt.
And Gandalf says it was ill-aimed. But Aragorn gives another perspective. He's like, either the aim was poor or he didn't know if he would rather hit you or Saruman, and so he hit neither.
Yeah, fascinating.
Gandalf says, small comfort will those two have in their companionship. They will gnaw one another with words, but the punishment is just.
And Pippin gets into trouble, as he will later.
He gets itchy palms, dude.
For picking up the crystal ball.
He can't help himself.
It's his own little ring here,
Yeah, the temptation that he feels.
Yeah.
Comes from like this powerful thing that is kind of like
and it kind of changes him when he gets a hold of it later. But
yeah.
But Gandalf scoops it away, and Gimli's like, "Can we get away from the tower? I don't want to get my head bashed in by something Wormtongue throws down at me." Gandalf says, "It is the end. Let us go."
There's a short little reflection on pity here that I think is worth reading in full. He says, I gave him a last choice and a fair one. This is Gandalf. To renounce both Mordor and his private schemes, and to make amends by helping us in our need. He knows our need none better. Great service he could have rendered, but he has chosen to withhold it and keep the power of Orthanc. He will not serve, only command. He lives now in terror of the shadow of Mordor, and yet still dreams of riding the storm. Unhappy fool. He will be devoured if the power of the East stretches out its arms to Isengard.
The piece about serving and commanding, when Gandalf faces down the Balrog, he says, I'm a servant of the sacred fire, or the secret fire.
Servant, yes.
Yeah, I'm a servant of the secret fire. And the secret fire, is the fire of God. It's the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
And so even, at his most powerful moment as Gandalf the Grey, he still serves something larger than himself. It's the fact that he serves something larger than himself that gives him power.
It's the humility.
Yeah, but Saruman left all that behind a long time ago.
It's like Saruman is powerful, and he exerts his control over other people to daunt them, to make them slaves.
But it's his own will, right? That
Yes.
It's always his own will that he exercises. It's not the will of something higher than him.
In like contradiction even to the will of God, he is setting himself up as a power. Gandalf sees the power in other people, and he kindles hope in them. And that's where his power is. It's not something that's personal to him. It's something that he inspires in other people, which is why he doesn't take the ring and march on Mordor, which he could have done. He had the ring in his hand.
Yeah.
He says, give it to me for a little while. Frodo hands the ring over to Gandalf when he throws it in the fire. That could have been it.
Yeah.
He could have put it on his finger and that would have been it.
And he doesn't hold it in a pair of tongs. He doesn't have it in an envelope. It's in his hand.
He touches it.
Yeah. Yep.
Pippin asks, I think really sweetly, what if Sauron doesn't win? Like, what will you do to him? He says. Like, yeah, they're not able to defeat Orthanc from without. Like, if Saruman doesn't come out, they're not going to be able to get him out of there.
No.
Like, only Mordor, like Sauron with the ring on his finger could do that. But Pippin's like, what if Mordor doesn't win? Which is like almost like he's saying it like in the slim chance that we come out on this thing.
Yeah.
What will you do to him? And Gandalf says, nothing. I will do nothing to him. I do not wish for mastery. And he says, I grieve that so much that was good now festers in the tower. Often does hatred hurt itself.
Often does hatred hurt itself. Boy, is that not the case. It's so like psychologically sophisticated, this chapter.
Yeah.
And so much of Tolkien,
Absolutely. Here, the companions meet Treebeard. Gandalf introduces them. He says, I have spoken of them, but you have not yet seen them. And he names them one by one. And Fangorn immediately is taken by Legolas.
Mm-hmm. Oh. So you've come all the way from Mirkwood, my good elf. A very great forest it used to be. Legolas just says, oh, and still is.
Yeah, it's great.
But not so great that we who dwell there ever tire of seeing new trees.
That's great.
And he's like, can we visit later? I got a friend I want to bring with me.
Can I sleep over at your house, Grandpa?
Yeah.
A little bit of comic relief happens here that I think is so funny. This is Tolkien's sense of humor, slapstick sense of humor coming out. He's like, Legolas says, I made a bargain with my friend that if we survive the war, we're going to go and tour Fangorn together. And Fangorn kind of like looks around. He's like, oh, where's this friend of yours?
Where's the other elf?
Yeah. And he's like, it's not an elf at all. It's a dwarf. I mean, Gimli, Glowin's son here. Gimli bowed low and the axe slipped from his belt and clattered on the ground.
Ooh, oh no, said Treebeard, looking dark-eyed at him. A dwarf and an axe bearer. I'm not sure. This is a strange friendship. Strange it may seem, said Legolas, but while Gimli lives, I shall not come to Fangorn alone, and his axe is not for trees, but for orc necks. 42 he hewed in battle.
Heck yeah. And Gandalf reveals to Treebeard that he's going to have to say goodbye to the hobbits, and that grieves him.
This is maybe my favorite line in this chapter, where Gandalf says, you'll manage well enough without the hobbits. And Treebeard says, maybe, but I'll miss them. We become friends in so short a while that I think I must be getting hasty, growing backwards toward youth, perhaps. They are the first new thing under sun or moon that I have seen for many a long, long day. I shall not forget them. I have put their names into the long list. Ents will remember it.
Do you want to read the song?
Ents the earthborn, old as mountains, the wide walkers, water drinking, and hungry as hunters, the hobbit children, the laughing folk, the little people.
I love that he puts them next to Ents in the list.
Yeah, that they're like tied together in the list. Awesome.
And he goes, hey, little guys, remember, when you're up in your shire, if you see any of those ant wives, you know what to do.
Let me know. Yeah.
And he tells them to come and visit.
Yeah, come yourselves if you can. We will, said Merry and Pippin together.
And they turn away hastily. Treebeard looked at them and was silent for a while, shaking his head thoughtfully. And then he turned to Gandalf. So it's almost like he's like, man, I love these little guys, just shaking his head to himself. But also, they're just so quick to leave. They're like, hey, see you later, bye.
Yeah, I think they're still a little freaked out by the forest and the Ents just in general. Like, see you later.
But I think there's almost like a sadness to Treebeard here. He's watching them go, and he's almost like, I wish they had taken a little longer to say goodbye. And Gandalf charges Treebeard to watch to make sure that Saruman doesn't escape. And he tells them to flood Isengard again to make sure that he can't get out from any like subterranean tunnels. And Treebeard promises to watch it diligently. He says, there won't be a squirrel that goes unnoticed.
This is the weirdest part of the chapter.
Very strange.
Because we know, I mean, those of us who have read this before know what happens later with Saruman.
They let him go.
And I think that, I guess it just shows that the Ents don't really like psychologically, they don't really understand the way that these like, smaller beings exist and how crafty they are and hasty they are. And maybe they can't actually like imagine Saruman escaping or something.
If I remember correctly, they call Treebeard out on this, and Gandalf says essentially like he can't stand to see any living thing caged.
Yeah.
And so they just can't understand domination. They can't understand imprisonment, because that's not the way of living things. Like living things want to be free.
Yeah.
But it is such a stark comparison. And I wonder what Tolkien was thinking about it at this stage of the draft.
Yeah.
If he planned on Treebeard to let him go all the time, or if that was a later development. I'd have to go back and look at the draft history. But Treebeard says, leave it to the Ents. We shall search the valley from head to foot and peer under every pebble. Trees are coming back to live here. Old trees, wild trees. The Watchwood, we will call it. Not a squirrel will go here, but I shall know of it. Leave it to the Ents, he says again. Until 7 times the years which he tormented us have passed, we shall not tire of watching him.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah, whoops. But that 7 times thing is like a biblical thing, right? 7 times 77 just means forever.
It's forever and ever, amen. Yeah.
And yeah, apparently he was a little hasty in saying that because
the hobbits wore off on him.
Yeah, when it comes down to it, that's not exactly how it goes. But thank you for reading along with us again this week. Next week we will be reading Book 3, Chapter 11 in The Two Towers, The Palantir. If you want to help us out, you can share this podcast with a Lord of the Rings fan in your life. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, leave a review, subscribe on YouTube, and visit us at waywardwizards.com for more info.
But until next time, remember, the treacherous are ever distrustful. We'll see you next week.
See ya.